Hey guys, what is up? AwesomeTheSauce here. Hope you guys are having a great day. Welcome to a very much requested video. If you guys don't know, yesterday, me along with other content creators took part in a KI roundtable about PvP, about this test realm, about the future. I'll be honest, obviously we were only there for an hour. If you were there, you know this, but we didn't cover everything, but we did cover a lot. And I thought I would make a video talking about my experience with it, my takeaways from the roundtable. Really quick disclaimer before we start. What I'm gonna cover is not gonna be every single detail. For that, you should watch the whole VOD. I'll link it in the description. Also, this was specifically a PvP roundtable, and I know that PvP is a very small part of the game, but I will say this just in case people need to hear it in the back. A lot of the changes that we talk about only affect PvP, meaning the values that we talk about, the numbers, the changes, the visions, all of that, it does not really relate to PvE. So I've heard this criticism a lot that PvP players are ruining the game, yada yada nonsense BS. It's simply not true. And I want to make sure people know that when we're talking about all of these changes, they're PvP only. Anyways, let's get right into it. So I think the topic that was at the forefront, and that's why I'm starting this video with it, is the problem of Pierce in PvP. Now, one big takeaway that I got from the roundtable was that they're trying to slow down the meta. What does that mean? Basically, that means that if you happen to get, you know, the right circumstances in your favor, like a Maycast, like an overtime right when you're about to get a shad, or if you just catch someone with a very small deck fail, right now, outside of test realm, you might just lose to a small deck fail or a small shift in RNG just because the damage is really high. You know what? I do think that there's an element of truth to this. I mean, you see fire wizards, right? All they really need to do right now, outside of test realm, is put out a single fire realm, and then if they get the furnace, then you're looking at an unshieldable hit because there's an overtime on you that does up to, with an enchant, 1650 damage. Add on your actual damage values and the multiplier you get from the furnace, you're looking at a hit that does 5k pretty damn easily. So they're trying to slow down the meta. So that's why we see the damage and resist changes. They're trying to scale things back a little bit and affect the pacing. The problem, however, is even though damage and resist were scaled back in PvP, Pierce was not. That will undeniably create problems because pets like this, along with Pierce enchants or other Pierce-oriented strategies, will basically make shields very useless, right? And then when you have the whole damage limit and the resist limit, the way those changes are going, resist doesn't do as much as they used to. So a lot of the conversation was about what are they going to do with Pierce. So a couple of the takeaways, again, from the roundtable is that they might do something with Shrike. It might get outright banned if the meta really shifts that way. I'm of the opinion that it shouldn't be. I'm uploading a video on Monday, and you'll see why I have that opinion. An interesting thing that did come up, though, they were talking about duelist gear, and I think this is a very real topic, right? I have a lot of issues with the duelist Daredevil ring, for example. It gives 6 universal Pierce to every school, so it just adds on Pierce no matter what, indiscriminately. Not to mention the fact that you need arena tickets to have this, and the only other comparable ring is the Alpha and Omega ring. It acts as a barrier for people trying to PvP, right? This is basically saying that you need to do a bunch of tournaments in order to get the 5,500 tickets, in order to buy this, in order to get ranked. If I put a live on Twitch notification and the link in the description isn't clickable, as in you have to search my Twitch in order to find me when I'm live, I lose viewership immediately. Imagine if a difference of a couple of clicks affects how many people view a Twitch stream. Do you really think a couple of tournaments are going to do anything in terms of driving people towards PvP? Absolutely not. I know the analogy is a little bit of a reach, but I do think that this adds Pierce and it's a barrier to PvP. So they are thinking about looking at duelist gear in general. And honestly, I don't think that's that bad of a thing. You know, it's only 6 Pierce, as opposed to literally 50 Pierce if you were to ban Shrike. And who knows, this might open up the door for more creative rings that are also for arena tickets or as boss drops, right? So it could be a cool thing. Basically, the key takeaway, something that we should all expect, is that yes, damage and resist have a limit on them, but Pierce is still a very good stat, and they don't want it to be an overwhelming factor in whether you win or not. It should be just as balanced as any other stat. There's very few stats left to actually balance. I would say Pierce is the underlying issue. If there ever is going to be a stat to put on the same, like, you know, spectrum, I guess, or a limit or a scalar, whatever you want to call it, right? If there's any stat to put that on, I would say that Pierce is the sore thumb. Another issue that I'm really, really glad that we talked about, and it's very good news, I think, for a lot of people who are curious about this, they are gonna add a display of some sort so that you can see what your stats are in PvP compared to PvE. So this is live ROM right now, so it's hard to really show this, but right now, if you have a certain gear, right, let's say my gear gives me damage that adds up to 162 damage. In test realm, they scaled this 162 damage, so the effective damage is somewhere around 120 something to 130. That's great and all, you don't want damage to go crazy, but you can't tell that it's 130. There's no way to know what number that you actually have, or what number you're going to experience in PvP with this dashboard right now. There's no display that tells you your effective damage. So they were thinking, Rapper specifically motioned over, like, I don't know, right here, right? There would be like a button where you would click, and then it would transfer your stats, and it would basically say, here's your damage in PvP, here's your resist in PvP, here are your stats effectively. That's gonna be huge, right? Like, it's gonna actually tell you whether a ward pet's worth it, for example, or when a ward pet is worth it, if a ward pet's worth it. It could let you experiment with maybe getting rid of a defy on your pet, maybe, right? For another talent, maybe an item card on your pet, right? There's all kinds of customizability that I feel like test realm, we're really missing out on, because we don't know whether that extra giver talent is worth it, right? Like right now in test realm, this extra giver talent would be adding maybe 2%, so it probably wouldn't be worth it. But for someone who doesn't know the formula that the damage is being put under, there's no way for them to know that. So that's really exciting. I think that's my favorite news out of all of this. I hope that they didn't give a time frame. I hope this is by the end of test realm. I don't know how hard that change is. All I know is that is vital. That is like the most important thing you could do. I hope that's like right at the top of the list personally, but I need to see the damage of the resist. Otherwise, I don't know what I'm working with. And finally, and this relates a little bit to too much damage in PvP, they were considering compared to a Shrike ban, this is actually better in my opinion, but they were considering not being able to enchant shadow hits. So what does that mean? That means if you have Solar Surge, you can put it on a non-shadow hit, but you cannot put it on a shadow hit. Now, I'm a little mixed on this, because I actually think that would have worked a lot better before the audit, but I feel like these were audited with the idea of enchants in mind, right? Like when they made, for example, when they made Winged Sorrow this week, I would hope that they were thinking about the fact that you can still enchant it when they made Call of Cthulhu 675, right? This is a very good example. They changed the way you could enchant Drains so that, yes, it's lower, but you could also do a full enchant on it, right? When the spell audit happened a few months ago, clearly they were thinking about enchants. That's the problem I have with this. Would the values change, or would they stay this way, but we're still not able to enchant it? I mean, damage is already lower, right? Even if it's a little bit more biased towards damage because resist also got nerfed, what are the values that we're going to be working with? That's an unanswered question. I was intrigued by this idea, and initially, right away, my first thought is, right, if these do way less damage, right, because you can't enchant them, that basically means you're going to have to put more and more other hits, right? You're going to have to put, for example, headlesses, vampires, wraith, and that's good and all, but the bigger your deck is, the more you're going to deck fail. So I asked about whether they would think about bringing back pre-enchants. I don't think there was any real confirmation on pre-enchanted damage hits, but pre-enchanted mutates, like for example, Minotaur. If, like, let's say you don't have the actual deadly Minotaur TC, right? Let's say that you had a mutate card, right? You would put it on a Minotaur and make a TC that you can put in your side deck. Would those ever come back? And they said there's a possibility at least. So I'm hoping that they keep options like that open, because if they limit more and more what we're able to put in our side deck, then pre-enchanted mutates really should be considered to be able to put into the side deck. The vast majority of mutates give up damage for the sake of utility. Like Minotaur, for example, is a good example. This is not that powerful of a hit. The reason it's good is because it hits once and then it hits again, right? That's why it's good. So I hope that deck RNG, and we did talk about this. I really recommend watching the full VOD, right? But I hope that those elements of deck RNG and pre-enchanting, they seem to be open, at least, to putting pre-enchanted mutates back in. But I hope that that kind of idea stays true, you know? Would we ever see pre-enchanted Solar Surge TCs? I don't know. I don't even know what my opinion on that is. I would have to see what other changes are accompanied by that. You know, like, I would need to experience PvP with it. All in all, y'all, it was a very productive conversation. I'm really, really thankful that they invited me to talk about it. This is my first time ever doing something like this. I was stoked. I really was. And you know, man, like, compared to, like, I don't know, like, let's say over a year ago, right? I guess before maybe the Catacombs update, this kind of communication we would have never gotten. So the fact that we have the ability to share these opinions and stuff, it is like a dream come true in my opinion. So overall, man, I think it's a huge dub. I hope that the questions that some of y'all sent me, I hope I brought them up, but if not, I hope there's more roundtables to answer more questions later. But yeah, guys, that was my experience with KI Live, what my takeaways were anyways. What the 3 top priorities were, in my opinion, are changes to Pierce, changes to deck building with maybe pre-enchanted mutate, and of course changes to how we display damage and resist. I think those are huge takeaways, and I really hope we see more of that in the upcoming weeks of Test Realm itself. We'll see, man. Guys, let me know what you thought about the roundtable, or what you think about what I talked about in the video today. I'd love to hear y'all's opinions. Drop a like if you enjoyed, leave a sub if you're new. There's tons of links in the description, including my Twitch, my Twitter, my Discord, my Instagram, and of course my Patreon. And as always, if somebody hasn't told you you're awesome today, they doing something wrong, so stay awesome. And yeah, y'all.